Hello and welcome to this introductory video on the program of Philosophy, Global and Comparative Perspectives here at Leiden University. My name is Tim, Student Ambassador of the Faculty of Institute of Philosophy, and I will be going to tell you all the ins and outs of studying philosophy here in Leiden and telling you everything you need to know to start as a philosophy student right here. The first question that we need to answer is, what exactly is philosophy? And in order to explain what philosophy actually is, I always like to make a distinguishment between two different types of questions. First off, we have empirical questions. These are questions that in order to get an answer, you need to observe reality. Examples of this can be, why is grass green? Or how long ago did the Tyrannosaurus Rex live? Or how and why do we cure a certain disease? Finding the answer to these types of questions requires observation in real life. In order to find out why grass is green, you need to put a piece of grass under a microscope and observe its qualities. Philosophy, on the other hand, asks a different type of question. It's a more theoretical and so philosophical question that can only be answered through reasoning. Examples of this can be, what is a good life? Or when is something knowledge, as opposed to it being a belief? Or do we really exist? Finding the answer to these types of questions doesn't mean we have to observe something in reality. Finding out what a good life is doesn't mean observing someone's life in reality and seeing if it's good. It means reasoning about the qualities of what it means to be good. Finding these kinds of answers can be very difficult, and it's a journey that a lot of philosophers try to embark on in order to answer these major life questions. Now the question is, why would you want to study something like philosophy? First of all, and the main reason to me, philosophy is fun. One of the main reasons you should engage a university in general and in making a decision of what program you want to choose is to find out something that you like, something that you really enjoy. You're going to be studying it for multiple years, and in order to really have a good time, it needs to be an interesting, fun program. Philosophy, at least to me, is exactly that program. Besides that, philosophy teaches you in a sense of personal development. Philosophy is not necessarily about knowledge, but it's about developing skills as a person, both applicable in life in general and on the job market. This personal development is what characterizes philosophy, and it's exactly one of the main reasons why you should be interested in studying philosophy. It's a widely applicable field. Philosophy is basically the backbone of all other sciences that exist, and understanding philosophy to its core means having a better grasp at these different types of fields. Lastly, why Leiden? Philosophy is being offered in many different cities around the Netherlands and around Europe. So why should you specifically choose the philosophy program right here in Leiden? Well, to be honest, one of the main and biggest reasons is exactly the reason you're watching this video. It's because, say it or not, we're your only option. Leiden philosophy program in this sense is unique, and that's the main point of this program that we want to talk about. Philosophy in Leiden is different from most other programs throughout Europe, and in that case, the world. Most studies of philosophy throughout Europe focus on Western philosophy. It's about the ancient Greek and Romans, up until medieval philosophy, up until modern Europe, and whatever happens after. But this specific program of Global and Comparative Perspectives not only focuses on the Western aspect of philosophy, but also cares for the non-Western parts of philosophy. It's about having non-Western like Indian philosophy. It's about having African philosophy, Chinese philosophy, or even the Middle East. All these different types of areas of philosophy are what come back throughout this program and are what make this program unique. Now, what are you exactly going to study during this program? It's about the most important foundations of philosophy, definitely at the start. The first year and a half of this program, which we'll talk about, is about having the most fundamental issues of philosophy presented to you and being able to understand them and know them to a certain extent. You will engage in in-depth material to try and make you understand the most important parts of philosophy to its core. Every teacher and every professor at our university has its own way of dealing with classes, and they decide how they basically fill in the classes themselves. But usually there's a sense of interaction to make you understand these parts of philosophy better. This can be through asking questions, it can be about having great discussions on philosophical topics, and analyzing arguments. Because philosophy to its core is about analyzing arguments and about understanding the arguments that philosophers present to defend their positions. Now, what I already talked about briefly is what exactly is unique about this philosophy program. It is this sense of global and comparative philosophy that can be found nowhere else in Europe, with focuses and courses on non-Western philosophy. We have a lot of experts on different fields of these philosophy programs and traditions, such as experts on African, Middle Eastern, and Asian philosophy. And lastly, not just the fact of global philosophy that happens here, but the fact of seeing philosophy as a comparative project. It is not an isolated thing that happens in one tradition and has nothing else to do with different places in the world. Philosophy is a project that humans embark on and that we can compare between cultures. And seeing philosophy as this kind of project is something that makes this program unique. Now, what exactly does this program look like? A bachelor is comprised of 3 distinct years, or 6 semesters. In the first year and a half of this program, you're going to have 18 introductory obligatory courses. This means that every single student who attends Leiden will have these courses together at the same time. The point of these courses is to give every single student of philosophy a basic foundation of philosophy and its most important fields, subjects, philosophers, and ideas. The point of this is to give everybody room to find their own interests. Using these introductory courses, you will be able to specialize later on in the program by finding out which courses you like and which courses you don't like. Now, you can distinguish between 2 different types of courses in philosophy. You got courses that focus on subjects of philosophy, such as ethics or logic or epistemology. In these types of courses, you don't tend to focus on different ideas and different subjects of philosophy, but you focus on everything related to one. So in ethics, you could have 1 week a philosopher from 2,000 years ago, and next week you could have a philosopher from 500 years ago, and maybe the next week even you have a philosopher from 20 years ago. And the point is that all these philosophers share a similar idea or a similar topic of ethics. Let's say we're talking about the topic of murder is evil. The philosopher from 2,000 years ago might say, murder inherently in itself is evil. There's no reason why we should be able to say murder can be good. But then a philosopher from 500 years ago can say something differently. He can say, murder can be good in some circumstances. Murder can be good if it benefits other people or if it has a very big good attached to it, depending on what happens. In that way, this kind of topic and this kind of subject of philosophy discusses different ideas of the same subject. And in order to do this, we discuss different traditions, different time periods, you name it. Now, you have a different type of course which focuses on a time period or a region. Think of courses like Indian philosophy or Greek and Roman philosophy. These courses don't focus on one single subject or topic of philosophy, but rather on some place in the world and some time in history. Indian philosophy can discuss many different ideas, many different subjects within the course. It can focus on metaphysics at one point, ethics another week, epistemology a third, so on, so on. But what they all share in common is that the course talks about the same region and the same time. So every single philosopher in that course will be from India in this case, and will have ideas that come from this kind of culture and this kind of scene. The second year and a half is when you usually have found your interest. You've found courses and regions that you do like, that you really prefer to talk about the most. In my case, I really enjoyed ethics and political philosophy, and maybe less so some other topics that I've had in the past year and a half. In this second year and a half, I'm then going to specialize in what I do find interesting. And this starts by choosing elective courses. In the third year, you're going to have courses that are based on your interest and are going to delve deeper into these topics. Because I was into ethics and political philosophy, I then chose courses related to these interests. You're going to end up with a thesis. That's the final project of your program and really your stamp on philosophy. A thesis project is where you on your own engage in a philosophical project of your own, defending a statement that you've taken and using knowledge and courses that you've had in the past. This is really the end mark of your philosophy program and where you shine as a philosopher, using the skills and knowledge that you've gained. One part I've left for the final part here is the discretionary space. This takes place in the 4th semester officially, but also has room to be moved to different parts depending on what you want. Now, a discretionary space basically means that you get half a year worth of credits that you can spend outside of the philosophy department in Leiden. And you can do a number of things. You can take a minor or a package of courses from a different program. You could say, I'm going to a different course in humanities, a different program, or I'm going into a little package of social sciences, maybe psychology or politics. Any way that you can engage in a different interest of yours, take some courses from a different program and apply your philosophical lens to it. What you can also do is study abroad for a semester. You could say, hey, I've been in Leiden University for a very long time. I love it, but I'd love to see a different place in the world. And you could take this semester to go to a different country, study philosophy there. Or you could go and do an internship. Let's say you already have a very good idea of what you want to do after you graduate and you really want to get some work experience. What you could do is take this half year and find an internship at a company or at a government agency and already get this work experience in order to get there later on. An important note, Leiden University has the binding study advice. This means that you need to obtain a certain amount of credits in the first year in order to pass on to the second year. Now for a full-time student, this is 45 credits, which is 9 out of the 12 courses that you have in your first year. And for a part-time student, this is 30 credits. I haven't talked much about part-time students, and this video will not talk too much about part-time students, but there are options to be able to do this program as a part-time program. For more information on this, you can look on the website. A couple notes about the program themselves. We have a very intensive philosophy program with 21 contact hours a week in the first year and a half. This means that in that first year and a half, you're going to have a lot of hours spent on the university itself, in this case 21, which can be lectures, tutorials, seminars, and even just doing exams. Besides this, you also have hours that you spend on self-study, which can be anywhere from 10 to 20 hours a week. So do note that philosophy is a very intense program with a lot of hours, even close to a full-time job. And maybe it's even more intense than some other programs that you know, but do be aware. Lastly, we want to talk about the exams briefly. Philosophy is a program where there's a lot of writing, and so the exams also comprise of a lot of writing assignments. In the first year, you still have some written exams where you actually go into class, you get a paper with some questions, and you have to answer the questions that are there, usually short essay questions. But especially towards the later parts of the program, you mainly and only get presentations and writing assignments like essays and papers. And these start at about 1,000 words in the first year, and then towards the later parts of the program, the second and third year, they go up to 2,000 or 3,000 words. In this way, philosophy is a program with a lot of writing assignments and a lot of your own free writing that you have to do, which is also something that you very much improved in. Now, how about after studying philosophy? What can you do when you graduate from this program? First off, a lot of university students end up doing some kind of master's program after finishing their bachelor's. And the same goes for bachelor students in philosophy. This starts with the option for doing a master's in philosophy right here at Leiden University. We offer a variety of different specializations within our one-year master program, including a specialization in global and comparative philosophy. So after having done the bachelor here for 3 years, there is the option to do the master's program in global and comparative philosophy right here at Leiden University. But let's say you've studied philosophy for 3 years. You think, I've gotten a different interest in a different field. I want to use these skills that I've gained in philosophy somewhere else for good. Then you can also decide to go into a master's program in a different field than philosophy. There are many different master's programs right here in Leiden University, from different faculties, from different fields, from different things than philosophy. And a lot of these have their own requirements for getting into them. On the website, you can go into every different master's program and look at their requirements and find out whether in some way after studying philosophy, you can be admissible to that specific master's program. A lot of universities and a lot of master's programs at them have their own requirements, and a lot of these can include doing a pre-master or doing a minor program. This is where the discretionary space that we talked about before comes into use. If, let's say, you have a different interest in a different field and you'd like to find out if you can do a master's there, they might say, do a couple courses. And then you can use this discretionary space and maybe do a minor package there or a package of different courses and get those requirements ready to go so that when you finish this bachelor's program, you can go straight into that master's. For the Dutch students amongst you, there's also the option to do a teacher's education right after you finish your master's. So for a teacher's education, you need both a bachelor's and a master's and then an extra little education next to it. When you do that, you can become a teacher right here at one of our schools. Next to me is an overview of the different fields and areas that philosophy students, philosophy graduates, end up in. There's a different array of fields, starting with government institutions, going into businesses and consultancy, IT, and even education. And from this, I can tell you one thing, the place you're going to end up is not determined. Philosophy students end up in a lot of different places. That's because the skills that we learn are applicable in all of these places. If I were to have the same little diagram for a student of medicine, then I would say that the biggest top percentage would be a very big percentage of people that end up in the medical sector, because medicine is a program that teaches you or educates you into becoming a certain profession in some sense. Philosophy is not that kind of program. It's a program with skills and knowledge that can be applicable in any different field of society. And that's exactly why next to me you see that philosophy graduates end up in many different places. Next to me is another list, and this is a list of more specific places that people ended up in. Not just sectors, but what kind of jobs can you have as a philosophy graduate? And the same thing can be concluded from this. There is no guarantee that you're going to be any of these. And there's no guarantee that you're going to be in any specific sector. But what we can see is that philosophy students have the skills needed to go into any of these fields. And that is why philosophy is a useful field, because the skills that we learn are applicable in so many different places that philosophy graduates have a big future ahead of them. The job market looks very good for philosophy students, maybe contra different types of stereotypes. Philosophy is a good thing, not just in knowledge, not just in personal development, but also later on in the job market. Now, are you a good match for philosophy? That's the next question that we need to ask. In one sense, the average philosophy student is very broad, in that over the past years in my philosophy time, I have seen a lot of different students come by, with different backgrounds, different traditions, different opinions, you name it. In the other sense, a philosophy student is very narrow, in that there are some characteristics that every student needs to have in order to be a part of philosophy, and to be a good philosophy student. This starts with having a love for reading and writing. A lot of the preparation for courses involves reading larger pieces of text, books, and papers by philosophers. And being able to love this reading, even later on into the program, is definitely something that you need to be able to do. At the same time, you're going to be doing a lot of writing. Most of the assignments, exams, papers, and essays involve writing larger pieces of text yourself. And loving this reading and writing to a certain extent is definitely something that a philosophy student needs to be able to engage in. Loving reading and writing, therefore, is a big part of being a philosophy student. At the same time, abstract thinking. Let's think back to those earlier questions I was asking you. What is a good life? Do we really exist? When is something knowledge? These are big, big questions that involve very difficult and complicated topics. Also requires a certain level of abstract thinking. Being able to think of what does it mean to be good, or what does it mean to exist, are questions that philosophers are asking themselves every single day. And being able to be open to this kind of mindset, being able to comprehend these types of difficult and complicated questions and complicated topics as a part of abstract thinking is definitely something the philosophy student needs to be able to do. Lastly, that I want to discuss perseverance. You're going to be writing a lot of different papers for this program. You're going to be doing a lot of different assignments, and I'm sure many of them are going to be great. But there's also going to be papers in there that are going to get a little bit more feedback than you expected, a little bit more things to improve on. And in the end, everything that feedback does for you is let you improve, and that's also the intention of the professor. Now, being able to persevere through this, obtain this criticism, make it your own, and improve upon it is definitely something that a philosophy student needs to be able to do. So in order to see if you're a good match for philosophy, see for yourself if these kinds of characteristics really do describe you as a person. Now let's talk about admission requirements. What do you need to have to become a student at Leiden University, and specifically for the philosophy program? For Dutch students, it's pretty easy. All you need is a VWO diploma of any kind with no further requirements to apply for Leiden University and study philosophy right here. Also, a propedeutic or a final diploma of a Dutch University of Applied Sciences is sufficient to study here at Leiden University. Or a Dutch University diploma of any kind, propedeutic or final, is again enough. For international students who have different types of education, the specifics on what your country's version of a pre-university education is can be found on the website. One extra thing that philosophy has is a matching module. A matching module is an extra module that you need to fill in before you go and study philosophy. It is a requirement. Thus, when you apply for philosophy, you obtain access to this module at some point and need to complete this before studying. What the matching module does is it gives you another chance to look at whether you are a good match for philosophy. And it also gives you an advice based on this module. The advice that they give you is not binding. So if the matching module concludes that perhaps you are not the right fit for philosophy, that still means that you can apply for the program and study it if you choose so. On the slide next to me, you see some of the deadlines for applying for philosophy for the upcoming year. Please do this as quickly as possible so that you can complete everything in order and make sure that you're able to start studying philosophy when you want to do so. Now, if you happen to think maybe philosophy is the right fit for you, then there's a number of different activities you can engage in to find out more about the program. Firstly, we have open days, where students are there to answer any questions you might have about studying philosophy. We also have an online experience module with a lecture and some questions attached to it for you to experience the kind of material that we offer here at Philosophy. We also have a Student for a Day and Experience Day events where you can really experience what it's like to study philosophy for a day. Lastly, you can chat with our students and answer them any questions that you might have left. Follow the link to my site to go to our website and find out more about studying philosophy here at Leiden University. I want to thank you for listening to me and listening to this video. Wish you all the best with finding the right study for you, and hopefully we'll see you in the future here at Leiden University.